Hello and welcome to Video Game Hangover. I'm Randy Dickinson and I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Hey, I'm DJ Ross. I'm in Mountain View, California.
Each week on Video Game Hangover, we talk about the games that have been keeping us up at night. This week, that list includes 13 Sentinels, Aegis Rim, Ikenfell, and Micro RPG.
Oh, a little micro RPG.
It's the tiniest of RPGs.
The anti-Persona.
Right, yes. Persona 5, Dragon Quest 11, those would be macro RPGs.
Macro RPG, yeah.
Yeah.
So you play this like 100 times and you're good.
It takes 1/100th of 100 hours to play it.
Okay.
1 hour.
That does sound more appealing on some level.
Yes, yeah. There is something very satisfying about, banishing a whole horde of orcs in, 8 seconds.
All right, I'm intrigued.
All right. It's one of those mobile games.
Oh, one of these things.
It's not a real video game. It's a
not
mobile
a real
game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mobile gamers, not even real people, I would say.
Not even actual human beings.
Yeah.
Yeah. With your Bejeweled. Is Bejeweled still a thing? People still play Bejeweled?
I was going to say, I dabble in Bejeweled, but probably not for quite some time.
Yeah. With your words with friends.
I haven't done a lot of that recently either. Man, Bejeweled's been last week we were talking about the 35th anniversary of Mario, but we're probably coming up on like the 20th anniversary of Bejeweled. We may have passed it.
Yeah. PopCap better have something planned. Yeah.
Where was the big Bejeweled collection?
I don't know. Does PopCap still exist? Is that still a thing?
I think EA absorbed them.
Oh, that would make sense.
So who knows? Your guess is as good
EA
as mine.
does. Anyway, so video games. We're going to play some. We're going to play a lot, actually, on Saturday, November 7th, because that day is Extra Life.
Yes.
Yeah. DJ and I are raising money once again. I think she's with us our 6th year in a row.
7 years.
7 years. 7th years. For the Children's Miracle Network hospitals in our communities. This is an awesome, awesome charity. If you've never heard of it, you should definitely do a little research on it. But yeah, it's a big, big day, 24 hours worth of gaming. Gamers around the world pooling their talents and resources to help support this cause. Yeah, if you want to watch us play video games, if you want to play video games with us, you can head to VGHangover.com/extralife. There's a bunch of details there. We will continue to add information as game day gets closer. But perhaps most importantly, if you'd like to make a donation, you can do that there as well.
Yeah, so please check that out. Get the information. If you are unable to donate for whatever reason, that's cool too. But it would be awesome to have you come join the stream. Just say hello in the chat. Cheer us on. We'll be there all day. So again, that's Saturday, November 7th. VGHangover.com/extralife. It's all there.
Yeah. People should.
Randy, what are you looking forward to playing on Extra Life Day?
What am I going to play on Extra Life Day? We're going to play some multiplayer games. Last year we played We Were Here, which was a cool, not kind of asynchronous. That's not the right word, is it?
Asymmetrical.
Asymmetrical. Video game where we were communicating with each other with walkie-talkies but had different objectives and puzzles we were trying to solve.
Yeah.
And there's a sequel to that called We Were Here 2. Strangely enough.
Imagine that, yeah.
Yeah. That you and I are going to play again this year, and we will stream that, of course. Yeah, I'm going to play some Fall Guys. I think that might be the day I go back to the aforementioned Dragon Quest XI.
Oh.
Yeah, so I don't know. Still kind of formulating my list of video games I want to tackle, and trying to think of what in my collection I want to play and want to spend some time with, and what is streamable. Because I just play a lot of Switch games, and I can't stream my Switch games. So
yeah, that's tricky.
what's on the PS4, what's on the Xbox. Yeah, we have some folks on our Discord who maybe we would sort of crew up with to play some Sea of Thieves, maybe. Man, I have not played that game in a while, and it's been through quite a transformation over the years. So I'm curious to see what life is like on the high seas again. So yeah, all kinds of stuff we have planned. What are you looking forward to?
Well, it just occurred to me that I got the Microsoft Game Pass, so I could do a real-time Microsoft Flight Simulator flight from here to, I don't know, wherever is
Harrisburg,
around the entire
Pennsylvania.
world. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's only like 6 or 7 hours. And I'll
just do a flyover, yeah.
Yeah. Just wave as we go over your house.
Yeah, like an Animal Crossing.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I'll just stand on my front porch and wave at the sky.
Everything is just eerily realistic. Probably won't do that. I don't know how interesting that would be. I've got on my list, I want to get the name of this game right. Oh, where did it go? There's this game called Hard Space Shipbreaker.
Oh.
Have you heard of this?
I played that at PAX.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I like that game.
Okay. Well, good, because I'm planning to play it. If you haven't heard of it, it's a game about like scrapping giant spaceships in zero gravity, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you start the game by taking out a loan to buy a bunch of scrapping equipment, and you have to fly around the solar system, sort of dismantling errant spaceships and sort of recycling their parts to pay back your loan. And there's a strategy to it. Yeah, you have to use different tools and different safety precautions. When you remove the thermonuclear reactor from an old spaceship, you can't just,
gotta
unscrew
follow
it.
protocol.
Yeah, you got to do it the right way. So
I mean, you can unscrew it, but who knows what will happen after that?
Right, exactly. I know because I played it at PAX, but DJ might find out on Extra Life Day.
Yeah,
but yeah,
so
that was a very cool
fun.
game. I played that demo for a long time at PAX.
Wow.
I did.
Was that on PS4?
It was on a PC at PAX.
Oh, so you played a PC game for a length of time?
I played a PC game with a controller attached to it. So
amazing! Oh, a controller. Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, I think that speaks volumes as to the quality of the game. So, looking forward to that.
It's a game so good, even Randy likes it.
We will drop a little more teases about what we'll be playing in the upcoming few weeks. And again, you can go to that address, VGHangover.com/extralife, get the full list, and eventually the schedule, once we have it filled out, you can find it there.
You should follow us on Twitch as well. So it's twitch.com/VGHangover, oddly enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we will be lighting that thing up all day.
Yes, we will. No matter what we're playing, there will always be something on that stream. So, yeah.
Just going to live stream playing Ring Fit Adventure for 24 hours.
Oh, I don't know about that. I think we'll have to talk about donation incentives.
Just a sweaty, quivering blob at the end of an hour, let alone 24.
How about this?
Yeah.
If we hit our goal before game day, we'll play some Ring Fit with the camera on. If we hit double the goal, we'll turn the camera off.
Yes, there you go. That sounds fair.
I think it's more than fair.
Yep. Cool. I'm excited. Extra Life's always a good time.
Yeah, super fun. Looking forward to it.
What else is going on in your life, DJ? Anything new, interesting, fun coming in?
I want to tell you about something just completely delightful that happened to me this weekend.
Oh,
or last week, whatever. In Final Fantasy XIV.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
All right. No, I didn't go anywhere exciting, of course, because that is it's still this year. So
right.
It's kind of out of the question.
That's why I was so impressed. I was like, what? What did you do?
I know. Where are exciting things happening?
Right.
Just on the internet, it turns out.
California's never even heard of the COVID. They just no clue what's going on. Yeah.
Right. But so just to zoom through the first part of this, because I don't want to spend too long on it. I just want to get to the good stuff. They dropped this new kind of open world zone, which is essentially like an enormous, looks almost like a World War I battlefield, which is kind of weird. They're like trenches all over the place. But basically, you can squeeze like 72 people into the zone, and they're all running around fighting this war, essentially. But at the end of it, there is Another kind of like large scale encounter, sort of like the a few months ago I talked about the Baldesian Arsenal, which was this whole ordeal. And if you remember, it took a lot of preparation and coordination to do one of these runs, and we ended up having like this guy who was acting like the tour guide, essentially, like telling people what to do and where to go and where to stand, and that was just incredible. It was so fun. But at the end of this this new zone, there's basically that again, but they've kind of tuned it so it doesn't require quite as much effort for people to get into. So I think that's great. It's just like that sort of experience, but more of the community can enjoy it. So essentially you get 48 people into this one dungeon, and there are like, how many parties is that? Like 6 or 8 parties of 8 people? 6 parties? Sure.
6, yep.
Yeah. So there's 6 parties running around, all trying to do these different objectives. You're storming this, like, the enemy base, essentially. And it's so great. So the first time I got into it, somebody was passing out links to a Discord because they were coordinating it on voice chat. Somebody was like the allied commander, just telling groups where to go and what to expect from the next boss and everything. And it was great because we were just like storming this castle and fighting, like defeating enemy generals or whatever. And there was this point where we all split up and had to break prisoners out of these cells where they were being held. And I was just like, oh man, this is so different than everything else going on in this game.
That sounds like Battlefield.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. And there was some woman who was doing the call outs, or like the Overwatch, who was, instead of that tour guide we had the last time. And it was like, this thing has only been out for like 48 hours or so at this point, but already people are just like professionals at guiding people through. I was just so impressed.
Yeah, and these, as before, these are not Final Fantasy employees. These are gamers in the community who have just sort of like self-appointed themselves your Sherpa for this. Yeah,
these are just community people who have stepped up and just know their stuff enough to the point where they can lead 47 other people around. And this is like a lot of people, they were doing this for the first time. So it was great to have a guide kind of walking people through it. So
cool.
They don't get killed left and right. So we're doing this. We're coming up on the final boss, and we're just like, oh man, this is it. What's going to happen? It's probably going to be pretty tough. And it turns out that during this one boss encounter, there is like in the middle of it, there's a separate boss that is one of the groups has to like break away from the main, I don't know, the main force and go fight in a different battlefield, because if you don't do that, then like the whole raid fails essentially.
Oh, wow.
So what happens is like the shot caller is explaining this whole process and goes, well, this is going to be kind of tough, especially if you're new. So I'm going to take my party and we're going to split off and do that. And because it's like the separate thing, I'm going to leave the voice chat because so I can like instruct my group. And I was like, oh no, what's going to happen now? There's nobody else who was like coordinating the group. And we're all just kind of like, she's got her party off to the side. Everybody else is just kind of standing around. There's nobody really talking. And we're staring at this boss. And then suddenly a familiar voice calls out and is like, well, I guess if there's nobody else to do call-outs, I can do it. And it's the tour guide from Baldesian Arsenal is there. And I'm just like, oh my God, it's the guy. This is amazing. I'm just like trying to contain my excitement. It's like, our hero has appeared to save the raid. And he like immediately just takes on like that same tour guide / flight attendant persona, starts dictating out commands like, all right, this is what's going to happen here. The next, we're all going to go over here. And he's just like so calm during this entire thing. It's like, oh, this is it. This guy's the total professional. So we fight the boss. That other group breaks away. They come back. They're like, oh man, we killed the other boss, or everything is good. It's looking good. And the whole 48-person alliance clears the raid. No issues whatsoever. And I was just like, I don't know. I was just like awestruck that all these things would come together this well.
That's it's just an unprecedented sort of what community effort. That's pretty impressive.
Oh, so good. Yeah. I can't believe that. I don't know what the chances were that same the same raid guide from before just happened to show up at just the right moment, but it was terrific.
Yeah. How did you know it was the same guy? You just remember his name or the sound of his voice, or what was your?
He has a very distinctive voice, so it's just like, and also he just has a very particular way of like calling things. Where I don't know, it was very familiar. I was like, this is definitely that same guy.
Excellent.
Oh man, it's good. It's so fun. I wasn't expecting this to be good actually, because it's based on similar content that's come out in the past that I've just really not enjoyed. But it's great. I've been back into it a few times. One of the more recent times, I got to join the special detachment to take care of the extra boss, and I was just like, "Oh man, this is it. This is the big time now." I don't know how this is gonna go, but man, just really not expecting to be into it, but it turned out to be pretty good. So I'm very pleased about that.
And you've run it multiple times.
Yeah, I'm. It's kind of random whenever it pops up, so it's not the easiest thing to like. You kind of have to be in the right place at the right time, but. Much easier to get the actual players in if it actually opens up.
Excellent. What's it called again?
This new area is called the Bozjan Southern Front. Bozja is like a country in Final Fantasy world, which is just like fighting against the evil empire in this one area.
I didn't ask. I wasn't asking.
I thought you literally just asked.
I just asked what it was called. You have to explain why it was called that.
Okay, well, I was just spitting out words that aren't real. I thought I might provide some background.
I'm not going to call you a liar. I'm sure it's called that. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, it just came out last week, so everybody's running it. It's a great time to be in, get in while the getting's good, I guess.
Excellent.
So exciting though. I love that there are like community celebrities, at least in my mind. They're a celebrity.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
That's fun. It sounds well, like I said, it sounded a little bit like Battlefield, but the other thing that sort of popped into my brain is the Hyrule Warriors kind of game where, you're running around a field wiping out dudes, and the thing that I remember sort of being kind of fun and compelling about the Hyrule Warriors games was just sort of constantly shifting like points of attack and different enemies and stuff like that, and you'd sort of finish wiping out hordes of bad guys, and they're like, oh my god, the eastern gate is under attack, so you book yourself across the field, and just as you sort of tidy up the eastern gate, the western gate now is under attack. So it's I like briefly anyways, I enjoy games where it feels like lots of things are going on and you've got to coordinate all your stuff.
Yeah, that's very different about this mode, because like typically when you're in Final Fantasy or most MMOs, generally if you have a party or even like a larger party alliance, everybody is usually in the same place, like the same room typically. Mm-hmm. But in this one, there are objectives all over this stronghold that we had to split up and go take care of separately. Yeah. Plus there's that bonus boss detachment. So it's like, oh, this is kind of some new and interesting ideas that they're bringing into this, and I feel like it's so much more successful this time around than their previous attempts at it. So
cool.
That's exciting. I'm just kind of like, what's next?
Man, I continue to be impressed by just the sheer amount of content that's in.
Well, they keep having the dull stuff out to keep people subscribed, but they're really doing a terrific job. So I'm happy to.
Nice.
Anyway, that was my exciting moment. I have no idea what's going on in the real world, but
that's fine. You're probably better off.
Yeah, I was going to say it feels slightly preferable this way.
Yeah. Cool. What have I been playing? I played this micro RPG. Let me talk about that briefly. Yeah. This is a fun little mobile game. It is it starts with a little comic book kind of splash screen that tells you that the kingdom is under attack and all the knights are on vacation. And there's a cute little cartoon of a bunch of knights wearing their helmets sitting on a beach. Okay. So the villagers have to defend the kingdom. And you take on the role of a little like village boy. And he's got some beat up weapons. And you get what looks to me initially like the game board essentially from the most recent Paper Mario game, where it's kind of a dartboard and you're at the center of it, and enemies are attacking from different sides, and there's a spinner that like a little shadowy bit that spins around your centerpiece, and as it sort of passes over enemies, if you tap the screen, you attack the enemies that sort of fall within that shadow.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I'm following.
Cool. Yeah, you'll jump from the center of the screen and slice your sword and take out a couple of enemies, and you'll jump back, and then it's the enemy's turn. They'll take a step towards closer to the center of the screen, and you have to watch the little spin wheel kind of spin around and determine which cluster of enemies that you can take down. Sometimes the little shadow will fall over just one person or one enemy, and sometimes you get little clusters and stuff like that, and then you get kind of multi effects. You get bonuses for taking out more than one enemy, obviously. Lather, rinse, repeat. Essentially, you go back to an overworld, move forward to the next tile, engage in another battle, and in between it, you get, because it's a mobile game, you get a bunch of different currencies to buy new weapons and upgrade the weapons that you do have. You get new armor and stuff like that. You take it into the next little dot on the map. Again, lather, rinse, repeat. And it's kind of fast, kind of speedy. You can get through any of these little targeted encounters, these little combat missions, within a few minutes, and on to the next one. And it's fun. I've had a good time with it. I keep kind of coming back to it. I've had a good kind of run lately of picking up my Switch as I'm crawling into bed. I've been reading a lot lately since vacation, so I've had my Kindle going. And geez, for the last 3 or 4 nights, I keep playing micro RPG before bed. It has taken the place of those other pursuits. Yeah, it's fun.
It's just on mobile. It's not a Switch thing.
I don't think it's on the Switch. I'm playing it on Android right now. I believe it's on iOS as well. I looked it up, and free to play. It does, ask you if you want to buy coins or gems, and how these mobile games go. But I've not spent any money on the thing so far, and I'm kind of holding my own. I suspect I will get to a kind of a paywall at some point and have to maybe kick in a couple of bucks. But so far, it's been fun, and it's been a kind of fun and different way to handle kind of turn-based combat.
Wait, so what do you use the coins for? Is that just upgrading equipment?
Upgrading your equipment.
Okay.
Yeah. You get, I've unlocked, a handful of weapons at this point, and you can take 3 into battle with you, and they all have kind of different kind of areas of effect. So the shadow that spins around the target is a different shape or color or width, depending on what weapon you bring with you. So if you bring a sword, you get a wide swipe with it, and it has a big shadow that falls over multiple enemies. You can bring a bow and arrow, so it's a tiny little dot that spins around the outside, which makes it really hard to hit enemies, but you can get tough enemies from afar before they get close to you. But you can only get one at a time. So again, you are swapping weapons kind of on the fly as the game sends different enemies towards you. So it's kind of been exciting to sort of switch through the arsenal and, try to decide which weapons to bring into the combat with me. And I think it's kind of surprisingly fun. I guess I don't know what I was expecting when I downloaded this thing, but as I spend a little more time with it, I'm like, oh, there's a whole game here. That's kind of a good time.
That sounds interesting. This kind of like rotating attack system.
Yeah.
I was going to say, it sounds almost like something in the same family as the timed hits from Mario RPG and Mario & Luigi. But what it really reminds me of, and actually this is my favorite ever implementation of timed hits or some sort of timing mechanic in an RPG, is there was this game, there's actually a whole series of these things, these RPGs called Shadow Hearts on the PlayStation 2. And they were these turn-based RPGs like Final Fantasy, where you just line up on one side of the screen, and the enemies would be on the other side of the screen, and you would select, I think this happened with anytime you attacked or used magic, or possibly even items. But when you did that, you would bring up this thing, I think called the Ring of Judgment, or the Ring of Fate, or something very weighty sounding.
Sure.
And it sounds like this mechanic in this game, where it was like a little ring, and there would be a line sort of cursor that would spin around it. But then within the ring, there would be kind of these highlighted like pie slices, and there would be like any number of these things, and you had to push the button as the cursor swept around the ring and overlap one of these slices to pull off your attack.
Oh, yeah, that's almost this exactly.
Yeah, so, and it would just do that for everything, which is like, oh wow. So you eventually just get very good at using this ring, and then you would run into these situations where like you could gamble a little bit, like you could equip an accessory where like, oh, now your attacks all do twice as much damage, but the zones on the ring are half as wide. So like,
oh,
so they had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah.
And I haven't really seen that pop up in anything else. I mean, it almost seems like, I don't know, it's such a specific system for that game, but hearing you talk about this makes me think like, oh man, somebody played Shadow Hearts at some point.
Yeah. And finally found kind of a new implementation for it.
Yeah. It's so funny because like just the name of this micro RPG and the whole conceit of making an RPG that's like an hour long, I don't really like. I would expect the battle system to be something closer to like Dragon Quest or something more traditional.
Yeah.
But this sounds very different, which is kind of refreshing.
Yeah, it seems like kind of everything in it is built for kind of speed and efficiency, which I mean, in a lot of ways you want from a mobile game, but I mean, really you kind of have to have in something you're going to call micro RPG. So yeah, it does feel like kind of this breezy kind of distillation of kind of all the padding that goes into those, big, delightful, but occasionally somewhat bloated RPGs.
Is there like, I mean, I don't know how deep of a story you can expect from a thing that's an hour long, and the premise is all the knights are on vacation.
The hour thing, don't get hung up on the hour thing, because I was kind of goofing on that. But
okay.
Yeah, I've not had any other sort of reference to that story whatsoever. So you get the 3 little comic book panels at the start of the game when you first fire it up. And then so far, and I don't know how long I've played it, but I'm probably 10, 15 kind of dots in on the little windy map, making my way up through the game. And I've not had any other sort of allusion or reference to that story.
Oh, man. Well, I hope we get some closure on it. Like, if they successfully defend the village or whatever. Yeah.
Just in time for the knights to come home. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, I'm not sure. I have no idea where it's going, but it's less about story and more about mechanic, obviously.
Oh, okay. Sometimes I kind of wish RPGs would be a little less about the story.
Yeah. Again, maybe that's sort of clearly it was a deliberate choice. Yeah.
Well, cool. I'll have to take a look.
Yeah, definitely check it out. I would, as I was playing it, I was thinking, geez, this feels like kind of the fast forward version of every other kind of slow and methodical RPG I've ever played. And the little combat encounters with the target are fun. I had a really good time kind of playing them. It feels like a video game. It feels like crazy, huh? So yeah, would recommend micro RPG.
Cool.
Yeah. What else is on our list?
You want to talk about 13 Sentinels? Talk about Ikenfell?
So I'll just segue right into Ikenfell because it kind of matches up in an elegant way with what we've been talking about with timing-based attacks in an RPG.
Got more dartboards?
No dartboards in this one, but it is kind of a repeat of that Paper Mario or that Mario RPG thing where if you push sort of a button as an enemy is attacking you, you can defend. But you've got to get it in just the right spot to take less damage. And vice versa. As you're attacking the enemy, you have to do a button press at exactly the right moment, and you'll do more damage that way.
Oh, good. Okay,
yeah.
So, took 24 years, but finally timed hits. People are catching on.
People are catching on to it, yeah. So the hook in Ikenfell is that it's kind of look. I'm gonna say this kind of tongue in cheek, but it looks like an old school RPG, and very much kind of a 16-bit kind of dungeon crawler in a lot of ways. You are a teenage girl who is trying to find out why you've lost contact with your sister. She is a student at a magic school called Ikenfell. No Harry Potter references, and you start the game kind of going to the school. You can't get in. You start exploring the town around the school. There's a lot of crazy things, magic things happening that have never happened before. And you've got to find a way to break into the school to figure out where your sister is. And as you do this, you start finding students, what you call it? I was going to say co-hosts, but, fellow pupils of your sisters, and they join your little ragtag band in the search for your sister at Ikenfell Academy. The fun thing about this is that everybody in the game, every monster, every character that you play, everybody that joins your team is a magic user. So there's it's so far anyways, there's no swords, there's no shields, there's no bows and arrows. It's just everybody throwing fireballs and giant bubbles and ice beams and stuff like that at each other. So you get these very showy, very flashy, and super fun combat encounters that are all just wacky magic abilities.
That sounds fun.
Yeah,
it sounds
it's a really good time.
The wizard game.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, there you go. The other thing that I really like about what the developers have done here is that there's no MP. You have no magic points.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, man, you're going to spend a fortune on those, MP potions.
Yep. You at no point have to refill your MP. So you can just cast magic all day long and you never run out of magic points.
Oh, that's all I want.
So that's what sold me. That was exactly what hooked me. I was reading the second paragraph of a review of Ikenfell, and the reviewer made a point of saying, and there's no magic points. And I'm like, I'm in. I'm sold. Let's play this game.
Just put that on every box. Just right up under the title.
No MP. They should call the game No MP. But yeah, so I really dig it. It doesn't sort of so much get into the weeds of kind of micromanaging. Geez, do I have enough points to be able to win this battle? You really just keep throwing fireballs at them until all the bad guys are gone. But they're going to shoot ice beams and rain toads down on you as well. So you have to be able to sort of counter those attacks too.
Can I just say, not to just inject more Final Fantasy into this?
Sure.
But in 14, I play as a black mage, typically, who can just shift into this mode where you regenerate all your MP very quickly. So it's really just not a resource you have to think about. And then, like, whenever I end up talking to somebody who, like, plays, like a white mage or a red mage or a summoner or somebody, I'm just like, oh, how do you live? You and your magic points, you probably have to use a potion every once in a while. But not me. I just, got an unlimited supply of these things. It's terrific. It's like living a game.
My sort of most delightful moment in any Dragon Quest game that I've played is when you inevitably find the ring or the amulet or the whatever that allows you to regenerate MP by just walking around.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, well, you're never taking that ring off because that is what we're going to do from now on.
Or when you find like the spring or whatever, you like drink from it and it's like, your MP was fully restored. Like, oh. I'm just going to hang out here for a while.
Put a little dot on the map where that is because we're coming back. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, managing that stuff sucks in RPGs. And there never seems to be enough of it to go around. And in Ikenfell, it's not even a concern.
Oh, okay, good. Solid foundation for an RPG.
Yeah. But it's overall it's fun. It's the dialogue is real light and kind of cheery. There are some kind of dark and ominous things that happen because your sister's missing, for God's sakes, at a magic academy. But there is a very colorful cast of characters that you encounter. It just clearly feels like a game where a lot of kind of love has gone into crafting this world, these characters, these mechanics. And yeah, I find it to be a lot of fun. I've struggled a little bit in the beginning because you feel a little kind of underpowered and you're still trying to kind of get the timing right for all of these attacks. So the game throws a bit at you kind of in the early hours. And man, there were a lot of encounters where I was just sort of dragging myself to victory with just one hit point left and hoping it was enough. Yeah, or you can see the enemies on the overworld, and I would just sort of sometimes run away from them. You want the XP, you want to be able to level up by taking on as many monsters as you can, but geez, if you're hanging on by just a thread with one hit point left, you maybe give the crazy flying book monster a wide berth and hope he doesn't see you, so you can get to the next save point and refill. here's a fun thing. The save point and the thing that refills your hit points in this game are little cats. So the legend of Ikenfell is that there are cats everywhere. I guess it's a magic thing.
That's it.
Yeah, and if you find a cat, you pet it, and you feel calm and cool, and all of your hit points come back, and it saves the game for you while you do it as well.
Oh, good.
So yeah, anytime you see a cat kind of roaming around the grounds of Ikenfell, you can pet it to save your game.
You don't have to like chase it down or anything. They're very cooperative with
Typically they're sleeping. Yeah, typically they're like on a little log or in a pile of leaves or tucked behind a building, and you're like, oh, there's a cat, and he's got little Z's coming out of his head, and you pet him, and he wakes up and he stretches, and it saves your game.
Oh, how nice.
It is. It's delightful. But yeah, so everything about this has been just a pleasant discovery. I've had a good time with it.
Well, sounds great.
Yeah.
I have to ask, though, so if there's no magic points, you're just casting spells all the time. Are they really spells if they don't expend some sort of, like, resource? Or how is it treated? I mean, are they really just, like, your basic attacks disguised as magic spells, really?
Yeah, I think basically the spells are your weapons in a lot of ways. So they don't exhaust. You will always take damage. So that's the thing that you're managing more than anything is, if the standard attack from an enemy does 3 hit points of damage, if you get the timing right on your defense, you can sort of negate that down to 1, but you can't negate it to 0. So while you're throwing fireballs in your defense, you also need to be able to, have a character that can heal, or you can have resources. There's mushrooms in the game are the thing that you have to pick that heal you. So you've got to make sure you have enough mushrooms to keep you alive. So you're not necessarily managing the magic points, but you're still carefully trying to make sure that you have enough hit points to survive the encounter. So that's the resource that is sort of constantly dwindling down that you have to make sure you're preserving.
Got it.
Yeah.
Man, there's something just so gratifying about being able to throw spells around like that with no real concern for spending all your magic points. That was something I really liked about Magicka. Remember that game?
I do. Yeah, those are fun.
Didn't really have magic points in that, but it was just like, oh man, just big exploding spells and lightning bolts all over the screen. Just as much as you want. It was terrific. And
if I remember correctly, the thing you had to be careful about in those games is that team damage was always on, right? So while you're whipping around electrical arcs and fireballs, you have to make sure your buddies are not in the way because it was a co-op game.
Well, I mean,
if, one of your friends is in the fray with all
but you could very easily just kill yourself trying to cast something.
Oh, I didn't think of that either. Absolutely, So just to make sure you take a couple of steps back before the fireballs go.
You learn that lesson very quickly.
Yeah. So one more thought on Ikenfell, sort of in, I guess, kind of in the trend of accessibility in video games. I think the developers of Ikenfell are doing some really interesting stuff here with making the game accessible to more kinds of players. At least not that I've found, there's not kind of a traditional difficulty slider, but there are a ton of little, checkboxes and sliders you can adjust for like colorblind mode. And if you're not good at getting the timing right on some of the attacks, there's kind of 3 different levels of it where you can do, level 1 is you doing the button press at the right time and hoping you get the response you want to be able to sort of defend or to cast at a higher level. You can do kind of the I forget what they call it in the game. It's like semi-automatic, I think they call it, where there's 3 different levels of, let's say, attack. There's good, nice, and great.
Okay.
And great is obviously the one you want. If you get the timing just right on the button press, that does the highest amount of damage to the enemy. So you can do semi-automatic, so it's always at least nice. And if you get the timing right, then you get your great. And good is never even an option. And failure is never an option. You never get an oops, which is the 0.
Okay. Sounds a little bit like a rhythm game or something.
A little bit, yeah. Or you can do fully automatic, where it's always great. No matter what your timing is like, if you're shabby at the timing game, you still have to do the button press, but you always get a great response, and you always do maximum damage or maximum defense.
Okay, okay. So you just have to remember that system exists, essentially.
Right, exactly. And And yeah, so if you're listening to me and DJ talk about these kinds of games where kind of rhythm or timing is an element, and you know that you're not good at that, or if you have a disability that prevents you from being able to be sort of responsive on that clock like you need to be for this game, then you can just take that out as a factor and be able to enjoy the game nonetheless.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's very cool. So there's a bunch of other stuff. Like I said, there's a colorblind mode. There's a couple of other different things in there that you can tweak. But one of the things that I think is super unique, I don't think I've ever seen in a video game before, is the game will put up content warnings. If you're sensitive to stressful things. So there's a character in the game that you meet relatively early on who has some self-worth issues. And she will occasionally say kind of negative things about herself. Oh, I'm so dumb. Oh, I'm so stupid. I can't believe I did that. If you are a person who is sensitive to those kinds of things, that is empathetic to that type of character, and it affects you in a way, the game will put up a little warning for you as you kind of encounter that person, so that you can kind of prepare yourself. It doesn't take it out of the game. It doesn't skip it. But at the very least gives you a little bit of a trigger warning that this is going to happen in the game and this character responds in this way.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't think I've run into anything like that.
No, completely unique. And it's off by default. So if that is not a concern for you, if it's not something that you think you're sensitive to or would have to worry about in a video game, then continue to play Ikenfell as it comes out of the package. But if that is a concern for you, if you're just sensitive to those kinds of things, then maybe put on the little alert and you'll get the little pop-up that tells you something's coming up that might affect you.
I thought you were going to say it's going to, I don't know, transform violent or frightening content or something.
No, it doesn't seem to alter the content at all, which I guess I sort of admire, but it is just a warning that something's coming that, you're going to have to process.
All right. In that case, I might just leave it on because I'm not really sure if it would jump out at me as being something that people might have issues with.
Yeah. I know. I mean, I played The Last of Us 2, for God's sakes. I can take anything in a video game. So I've left it off. But it's I do find it interesting that exists. I'm kudos to the chefs here for having the foresight to look for a way of making their game accessible to any gamer who wants to play it. I think that's super cool. I mean, the other thing I read again in sort of a interview with the developer is that they're open to more of it. If they've missed something, if they're overthinking something or underthinking something, and they feel like there should be other points in the game where alerts should be for folks who are sensitive to those kinds of things, they consider it to be kind of a working document, essentially, that they can kind of continue to tweak and make sure again that the game is accessible to anybody who wants to experience it.
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah, I really kind of admire that.
I was thinking of, there was this, what was the game, this was in the headlines a few months ago. It was the Xbox game where you fight giant bugs. It's like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, kind of, where you're very small and you're fighting bugs in the yard.
Oh, it was like an arachnophobia kind of thing.
Yes. So you saw this thing? It was
now that you say it, I remember it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. This was amazing to me because I had never seen anything like this either, and this is sounds like it might be good. But there was an arachnophobia slider because since you're fighting bugs in this game, you eventually run into giant spiders, which some people might have problems with. And you can turn up the slider based on how strong your arachnophobia is, I guess. And by doing this, it would make the spiders in the game look less spider-like, supposedly, to the point where, if you turn it all the way up, they just turn into these little floating, ghosty blob-looking things with a couple eyes, which is hysterical. But it was just amazing to see the setting. It was make these enemies look less spidery. I thought it was
as sort of innocuous as possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
That game was called Kill It With Fire.
Kill It? Is that? Okay.
Is that not what you had in your mind?
That is... No, I thought it was something more like... it's not Fortnite, but it was something something similar sounding. It almost sounded like it was a play on words or something. I'll have to look this up. But anyway, I love that people are working on stuff like that. I feel sorry for the people who had to just figure out how do I make these spiders look less like creepy spiders and more like a weird ghost?
Yeah.
if that wasn't their thing. But I'm glad that people are looking out for gamers of all types.
Oh, no, wait. I'm still Googling. That game is called Grounded.
That's it. Yes. Okay. That sounds much more like it. What's Kill It With Fire?
You have your house is being overrun by spiders, and you basically are on overkill mode. You have flamethrowers and grenades. And,
Okay. No, that doesn't sound good at all.
yeah. So you're basically destroying your house to destroy the spiders.
Okay.
But Grounded, yeah, is a game with giant bugs who are trying to attack you, and there's an arachnophobia mode that lets you turn them into legless blobs.
Yeah. So I didn't mean to make it sound like Kill It With Fire is a terrible game. It just sounds like I don't want to be in that situation.
Right.
Maybe the game is incredible.
Yeah. I'm Googling, and it's like, here are the 10 worst video games to play if you have arachnophobia. I'm like, wow.
Oh, no.
Somebody's doing the research on this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some poor underpaid US gamer intern. I don't know.
But yeah, it says a fear of spiders won't hold you back in Grounded's new arachnophobia mode.
Yeah, good.
Arachnophobia safe mode is what they call it.
Arachnophobia mode. Don't turn that on.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Really cool. I'm very interested in this Ikenfell now.
Yeah.
Did you say this is a Switch game?
I'm playing it on the Switch, but I believe it is also out for PC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful, and I didn't really talk about sort of the artwork at all. I sort of jokingly said it looks like an RPG, but it very much looks like kind of a 16-bit RPG. But it has a lovely kind of chip music soundtrack and just a beautiful kind of pixel graphics, and they do some really interesting things with kind of the way that the screen shifts during combat, so that you end up with enemies kind of on a grid and stuff like that. So again, there's some very sort of creative things happening here, but it's all done kind of with a lot of love and a lot of polish.
Well, cool.
Yeah. So it has a weird name. It's called Ikenfell. Just think of it as the no MP game.
The no MP game. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Anyway, speaking of games that do not have MP, I've been playing a lot of this game, 13 Sentinels. It's really good.
Yeah.
It is it's not even really an RPG. It's kind of a weird combination of things. Most of it is a visual novel, similar to like 999. What is it? 9 Hours, 9 Persons, 9 Doors.
Yeah, it's the nonary games.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. And the sequels to those, where it's like a lot of story sequences, and it starts out so. Generally, you are playing as these 13 different protagonists, and feels like most of them, if not all of them, are like high school students from 1985 Japan, who are kind of just going about their daily lives as high school students. And then the rest of the game takes place with these same characters, and they are just piloting like enormous mechs around Japan because Japan is being invaded by kaiju monsters from, I don't know, from outer space or another dimension or something like that.
Excellent.
So, yeah, just one of those games. It's this tired old premise. But where it gets really interesting is that the whole game is kind of told, or the whole story rather, is presented out of chronological order. So you get to know, you introduce all these students through, most of the time through the context of, they're just going to class and hang out with their friends after school. And then it will jump to one of these mech segments. And it feels like most of the time they feel like pretty seasoned mech pilots. So you're just like, okay, how do we get from that sequence where they're hanging out after school to all of these people being just hardened combatants fighting alien kaiju and all that? So it's very weird.
You ultimately sort of fill in the blanks as it sort of jumps through time. You're kind of filling in the gaps in between them sort of being teenagers and them being kind of the mech pilots that save the world.
Yeah. So it's not like everything is kind of, like I said, it's kind of happening out of order. So in some cases you will see the students like being introduced to the robots, or kind of the organization that's building the robots, or other like alien creatures who are somehow related to the robots or the aliens. There's a little bit of like secret conspiracy or Men in Black stuff going on as well. It's a lot to keep track of. because there are like you have all these characters. There's like kind of a time loop thing going on, and kind of time shifting as well. I had a whole set of notes taken on this game because it starts out and you are just spending a little bit of time with a few of the characters doing their prologue sequence, essentially, which is just kind of a quick introduction to them. And then at the end of each prologue, it gives you a quick little mech battle, which is almost like the tutorial to how the mech combat works. And then it will, like, you finish the battle and it will take you to another protagonist viewpoint. You'll get their prologue and then do another mech battle. And, like, just from doing this, I was kind of trying to figure out, like, okay, so some of these people seem like they're not from the same time period as some of the other people, but at the same time, they will show up in each other's, like, story segments, so I don't know what's going on.
Oh.
But I eventually, like, I cleared the prologue chapters for most of the characters to the point where it dropped me off at this, like, character select screen. And from there, like, some of the, like, timeline mechanics are beginning to become a little bit more clear. But I had a lot of other questions about how this game was structured during the first few hours.
Huh.
And I don't want to give anything away, but it's just been terrific because I really love the time jumping structure and just the fact that you're getting all these scenes out of order. And supposedly it all comes together very well at the end.
Huh. It sounds super ambitious, but it also sounds like the kind of thing that I would be very nervous about the handling of. It could potentially be quite sort of jarring and confusing if not handled well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm kind of trying to, like, take it very slowly because it feels like there is just, like, the potential to just become overwhelmed and just lose track of what is going on and who all these characters are.
Oh, yeah.
That all of the characters have Japanese names, so that is not helping either. I'm just like, oh, who is this? Are they the same character from this other scene? I don't know.
Right, and they all look like, what, little anime boys and girls, I'm sure.
Yeah, they all, some of them look very similar because a lot of them are just wearing, like, the school uniforms. And I'm just like, oh man, it's got his jacket open, so that must be a different character than this other one. He looks very similar to this other character as his jacket open, but
oh boy.
After you spend enough time with it, it's pretty manageable. In fact, they have a nice, the visual novel sections especially are very player friendly because you can pause them at any point and go back through all the dialogue that people have said. You can hit start and open the manual there's like this big database of all the characters and kind of key concepts and figures that you've encountered, and you can read through that at any time to kind of give yourself a refresher if you're missing something. But that's also kind of where some of the gameplay comes in, because in the visual novel segments, it's like if you played 999 or something similar to those, the story branches in quite a few places. So a lot of it becomes like you will do one playthrough as this one character and get to kind of an endpoint where the chapter will end, and you'll get sent back to the protagonist selection screen. But you can open up also this flowchart, which shows you, like, all these different paths that the story can take. And it will also show you, like, along the way, you collect different keywords that you can bring up to discuss with other characters. And based on what discussions you have, the story will branch out in different directions. So I discovered that if you look at this flowchart, it will actually show you in places, well, like, at this point, you need to have unlocked these keywords and use them during this scene to take this path. So that way you can kind of keep a bird's eye view of everything, like all the possible branches the story can take. Which sounds very overwhelming and slightly convoluted, but the fact that you can just access this pretty much any time, I think makes it much easier to just keep your head wrapped around.
Wow. Did you ever play Radiant Historia?
I did not. No, I hear that's very good. You recommended very highly.
Yeah, I would recommend the game pretty highly, and it has a similar mechanic in it where it's got kind of a visible timeline. The game has not a time loop, but a time travel element that allows you to kind of go back in time to change future events. And again, it kind of has the potential to be quite confusing and overwhelming, but it gives you a visual timeline that you can kind of like scrub through dots on, essentially, to see where you've been and see what impact you've had and what's changed since the last time you were there because of the choices that you made in a different timeline. And I think again, very ambitious, but the developers kind of really put a lot of work into creating tools that allow it to be a little more visual and a little more accessible without being overwhelming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they definitely realize that is a risk when they're putting together a story that with this kind of structure. So they've done a pretty good job of
and when you're trying to juggle that many characters too, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't even, I've played this for 7 or 8 hours now. I don't have all 13 protagonists unlocked. I think I have 8 or 9. Oh. And I'm just I don't even really know how to proceed because it's another thing. After you clear the prologue is totally linear. You're kind of just left to your own devices. And there are these 3 major sections that the game is divided up into. There's the visual novel sections, and then there's the mech battles, and then there's the archive, which is just the bank of keywords and characters that you can scroll through. And between chapters, it just drops you off of the screen, which kind of shows your completion percentage for each of these 3 areas. Mm-hmm. And they're all at 10 or 15% completion at this point. I was oh man, got a lot of work to do. Got a lot of timelines to scrub through. But it's great. I can't stop playing it. It's very, very mysterious. I want to get to the bottom of everything that's happening.
Huh.
Oh, and then there's this whole mech battles thing, which I've barely talked about. I have to admit, I'm playing it on casual difficulty because I'm much more kind of invested in the story at this point. But the way the mech battles play out is it's kind of like an XCOM light almost, where you're not really on a grid or anything, but you have this tactical map of Japan or the city that they're in. And you're all generally, each mission you're protecting this one central node that the aliens are attacking. And you deploy your mechs, and each mech has a specialty, you have your melee mechs and long range or anti-air mechs and, all that kind of stuff that you would expect in a tactical game. And each one has their own respective abilities that you use to take down the enemies. And since I'm only playing on a casual, they're not putting up a huge fight, but it's very satisfying to deploy your guys correctly and use the actual and use your abilities, because man, the way it's presented is it looks almost like you kind of don't even really see the mechs or the enemies drawn on screen. It looks more like you are looking at, I don't know, some kind of tactical display that the commanders at the base would be looking at. So it's almost like a radar. Oh. But when you signal one to attack, they will you'll see that character move along the map. Unless they're a flying mech, they will have to kind of trace their path through the city streets, which is kind of interesting. But then they will get to their target, and then they will just unleash this ridiculous barrage of machine gun fire or missiles. Or one of my melee mechs has this ridiculous excavator claw that looks like it would be used to drill tunnels into a mountain, but he just punches people with it.
Oh wow.
It's great. And just all the attacks and the effects are super exciting and satisfying to see play out in this weird kind of computer vision looking thing. It's super fun.
Cool.
It seems like there's a lot of depth available. You can customize your mechs and have them learn new abilities and level them up if you're really into that side of the game, which I may go back and investigate at some point. But my top priority right now is just getting to the bottom of the kind of the time loop alien invasion mystery.
Right. What the heck is happening?
Yeah.
This is a recent release. This came out in September. I have never heard of this until now, and it sounds very cool.
Yeah, well, I think it was out in Japan for a while, and it just took a while to come over. It's all fully voiced, which is crazy. That might have had some contribution to the long localization.
Right.
But it's really good. If you're into... I said it's not an RPG, because it's not really, but if you're into very story-heavy games with cool cool time travel conceit, this is pretty good. I know it was getting a lot of praise, and I really enjoy. Actually, what really got me into it is the soundtrack is by one of my favorite game music production studios, I guess. So I was okay, I'll check it out, see what they're up to. But it's actually super good. It's might be one of my favorite games I played this year.
Cool. Well, that's exciting. What a discovery.
Yeah. I'm really just trying to stick with it because I know if I spend too long away from it, I will just forget who everybody is. So
you're right.
That's one danger, but I don't really see that happening.
Oh, me. I'm gonna have to watch a little bit on this because you've said a lot of things that intrigue me.
Yeah, I don't know if you would be into it.
Yeah.
Like, so far the story, like, the writing and everything has been very good. Like, the dialogue's been very snappy. There are a lot of fun references to, like, disguised alien/sci-fi movies from the 80s. I think one of the characters was talking about how they're like, oh man, it's just like in that movie where, you know, we had to prevent the war in the future against the robot uprising. And like, oh yeah, I saw that one. It was called The Exterminator. And like, oh yeah, that was it. It's like, okay, guys, I see what's going on. So yeah, the writing's real good. I've been very impressed, and there was a lot of it. So it's good that they turned this in.
You mentioned that it takes place in the 80s. Have you found a sort of deliberate reason why they would do that?
Not really. I don't know if there's a specific reason.
They
don't lean on it super hard.
Okay.
They do spend a lot of time trading videotapes, which is hysterical.
I find that in a lot of ways that some entertainment sort of seems to be set in the 80s now, because the invention of cell phones would sort of make their story irrelevant.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if if there was a sort of a technological limitation they were trying to sort of hem themselves into.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, certainly it would be different if they could just, everybody just pulls out their iPhone. It's like, oh man, look at this robot.
Yeah.
We'll just text you the picture of it. But no, it seems pretty, I don't know. Doesn't necessarily need to have been set in the 80s, at least not, I mean, there hasn't been any critical plot points so far other than the videotapes.
Right. And plus everybody gets cool clothes and really neat hair.
Yeah, I mean, they're all just wearing school uniforms, which is like, all right, fine.
Cool. All right. Well, nice. Man, 3 games we all really like.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. I guess we should wrap this thing up. If you need any more video game hangover in your brain, you should follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/VGHangover. You can get show notes, links, and tell us what you thought about this episode, and learn all about our extra life efforts for this year at VGHangover.com. You can also find a link to join our Discord. Man, we will use that quite a bit for extra life as well. So just make sure you connect with us on any app where there's a VG Hangover presence. The president
of VG Hangover will be there.
I don't want that job.
No, not it.
But you get the link to that on VGHangover.com as well. And, subscribe, rate, review us on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, all kinds of places. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, and tell your friends about us, please.
Yeah, please do that.
Yeah.
Thanks also, as always, to Lemonectric for our intro and outro music this week. Please head over to lemonectric.bandcamp.com and listen to more of his stuff. It's really good.
Definitely. All right. We will be back next week. Is next week spooky games? Spooky.
Oh, it might be a little spooky.
Oh, cool.
Is that right? I'm looking at my calendar. I have no concept of time anymore. Is it October?
Next week will be spooky games. Yes, absolutely.
Ooh.
Yep. We're going to play all the Christmas games next week.
No, don't
What's
start.
your favorite Christmas game, DJ?
I don't know. I played a Christmas game. Are there any?
Either. I can't think of one. I remember a game my parents used to have on their ancient PC that was like penguins, and it was snow, and you bowled and knocked over the penguins.
Penguin bowling.
It was called Penguin Bowling?
Or whatever. I think so. I don't know. I mean, that sounds like a perfectly good name for it. If you're bowling with penguins.
That's the most Christmassy game I can think of right at the second.
It's not particularly Christmassy, but I guess it's true. It's more Christmassy than other games that I played.
It's cold weather, and the penguins
was it
all
like
had
Santa Claus throwing the penguins? Wait, were you bowling penguins over with the ball, or were you throwing the penguin?
Yeah, the penguins were the pins.
Oh, well, that sounds terrible.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a penguin, yeah.
Yeah, no penguins are harmed in the making of this game.
No, just a video game, guys.
Okay.
But no, definitely Halloween games for next week.
Yes.
Spooky games, yeah. Spooky. All right, we will be back next week with those promised things. Until then, this is Randy Dickinson.
This is DJ Ross.
Thanks for listening to Video Game Hangover. Goodbye.
Good night.
See ya. Brother.